Just to begin, I was reading another interview with you the other day when researching for this, and I found where you expressed a dislike or even, I think, a hatred for music. Um, for people like me who love music and love your music, it's kind of hard to get my head around um, that you have such a dislike for something that you do so well, and why you continue to do it.
That interview was done before I was treated for PTSD,
Hmm.
and I had been told since I was a teenager that I was bipolar. It was a misdiagnosis, and I had known that, but people don't listen to you when you say things like, I'm not crazy if they think you're crazy, and so I had maintained that I was just a musician, that music made me different, and that was it. That I was going to have to live with my idiosyncrasies and the sounds that I heard, but they did certainly grow in impact for me to the point where they were interfering with my life. And as a mother of four, I wanted to maintain my clarity and my health. I don't believe in the cult of the rock star. I don't believe in the idea that mental illness is associated with creativity. I want health and clarity, and I began to fight with music to the point where I just wanted it to stop. It had become like God and monsters to me. And then I was treated for PTSD after my son was kidnapped when he was 3 years old. And when I was cured, the cure itself revealed an alternate personality, which was music. And that's why I had no memory of having written or performed any of my songs. They were so foreign and frightening to me. So I was never bipolar. I was dissociative, what they used to call multiple personality, and it was really just a divided personality where music was one of me and Kristin was the other. And that's why I was such a nice lady and such a scary musician.
Yes.
And I didn't really want that diagnosis, and I didn't want the pain that I suffered in the integration of the two personalities, because it happened against my will. I was on a promo tour in England. I had no idea this was going to happen to me. I called the doctor in America in the middle of the night and said, "You have to make it stop. This is going to kill me. This is every trauma I've ever lived through. All my pain, all my anger, sadness, everything dark is coming at once, and it's coming physically." And she said, "Let's make our rule. If it doesn't kill you, you live." I was like, well, that's my rule anyway. That's everybody's rule. She said, "It's not me doing it anymore. It's you." And now I am me, and I am music. So that was a very long answer to a very simple question. I don't hate music anymore. I am music. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. So since that treatment, in what ways has the creative process for you in terms of writing and creating music been different?
For 2 years, I heard no music at all. So the music that I've been working on, Throwing Muses record, Purgatory Paradise, my solo record that I just finished yesterday, the 50-Foot Wave record that's about to be released, they were all written before this. So I had been using my craft without any inspiration, that's a normal part of the process when making a record. It's not like you have that crazy glow around you. You're a producer and you're a session musician, and it's very business-like as there's creativity inherent in that process, but it isn't inspiration. And so I had been working off this material that was created before that treatment until I guess about a month ago I picked up the guitar and I just knew how songs went.
Mm.
I don't really know how else to put it. I wasn't hearing them for the first time in my life. I knew them already. They were just there, as if you were looking down at your fingernails, and they're just there.
Yeah. Going back to your teens and forming Throwing Muses, were you like a typical teenage band starting out? Did you have all the usual hopes and ambitions that most bands do when they first form?
No, none whatsoever. We were ambitious when it came to the next song. We played shows because that's what you do. We were enthusiastic, but we knew that as soon as our equipment died, we would too. Because what we did was play in our own language. We certainly didn't hear ourselves as strange as everyone else did, but we knew that we weren't going to find our place in the recording industry. So we were prepared for that. And then we were recorded by dozens of labels, including major labels. It made no sense. It still didn't make any sense. I knew that they would just drop us as soon as they realized what they had done. And I think we sort of maintained that attitude. It's sort of like being losers, which is, I believe in being losers. I think it's important, but I also feel like we just do our blue-collar job, and that's valid, so I don't want to call that being a loser. It's just that, no, we have never suffered from ambition.
Did you see it as something of a necessary evil to step into the dark side and sign with a major label and get into that corporate backing?
I think it was maybe an unnecessary evil. It was evil. we signed with 4AD first, with Ivo Watts Russell, who gave us a one-off, just one record deal. Said, let's see if you like it and see if I like it. And in fact, I just spent last week with him in New Mexico. He is one of the most important people in my life since I was a pregnant 18-year-old, and he signed my band and let us play in our own language, which I didn't think was possible. And it was signing with Warner Brothers was hard because there is, it's not even unspoken. They want you to be a hot chick who doesn't know how to play. And I'm either of those things. I know how to play, and I'm not a hot chick. And I am, like I say, I'm not ambitious except when it comes to music, and they didn't want that. They want you malleable. They want you writing stupid songs. They can sell to radio, which I understand, but they're in the business of music, and if you're in the business of toothpaste, you sell something that keeps cavities away. And for some reason, if you're in the business of music, you do the opposite. You create fashion sound, the anti-music, and you try to sell it to people who don't even like music or understand it. So now that the music business is collapsing, it's a more fruitful environment for the musically literate and the people who want to become musically literate, including kids, like 8-year-olds who don't listen to music in any particular genre or from any particular era because they're learning to discern when they're being lied to through fashion sound and when someone is telling the truth because they have to, which that's the ideal listener. And someday we will have the ideal musicians playing to the ideal listeners. Maybe not in my lifetime, but we've begun that with this little teeny revolution.
Sure. Now, in recent years, you've had to deal with publishing companies putting out some books. Are they a similar beast to deal with?
It's a little better, as you can imagine, and sometimes it's a lot better. But it's been more of a personal process for me. I didn't know how to write a book. I just asked to twice. And for the first couple of years, my first book sucked. It was clever and pointless. And then for 2 more years, it wrote itself, and that's when I got lost in it. And eventually Penguin said, pencils down, Chris. And they released it, and I had to sort of figure out what I had done. which was nonfiction, and most of the people in it were still alive. So I had a moment where I came home from tour, and there were stacks of books. It's called That Girl in America. Maybe, is it Paradoxical Undressing there? Maybe outside of America, I think it's called Paradoxical Undressing. But anyway, there's stacks of them on my front porch, and for the first time, I thought, "Oh no." I'm like, what am I doing? But I handed them out to all the people who are in it, and they said, yeah, that's how it was, and thank you for being nice. And I was nice. I told the truth, but I'm a nice lady. So the next book was a request of UT Press in Austin, who does a Musicians on Musicians series, and they asked me to write about Vic Chestnut, who died a few Christmases ago, and I said no about a dozen times, and they kept asking, and like I say, I'm a nice lady. I just said okay. And that was an all-encompassing process that I barely remember. I was so enthralled by the time tripping, by hearing people's voices and remembering conversations, and just it was an intense and important time. And Tina Chestnut, Vic's widow, said to me a couple of months ago, we lived love and music, and we're not really allowed to do that anymore. And so I'm glad that that time was encapsulated. And when I finished it, it doesn't end happily, obviously, and I almost didn't want to finish it that way. Mm-hmm. A story can be nonfiction without an ending. I wanted to end it before. I wanted to imply that there's no such thing as an ending, but the book came with a very simple, sad ending, and yet the book tour, which was a few months long, let me time trip again, and I realized it's still a cyclical trip. It always is, even when you remember your own life, I'm sure. It's more of a spiral. There's no ending.
I did once have the pleasure of interviewing Vic Chestnut, and I found him a charming, witty, and very happy soul, but obviously there was another side.
Yeah, he was lovely, and so he would show you that as often as he could. And then he also played the devil, which is as it should be, and because it says he was. And I think there was more good in him than he wanted, because it made him awfully vulnerable and fragile. And but we had fun. I guess that's the most important thing. I did public interviews for this. A journalist would interview me in front of a live audience, and every journalist across America made a point of saying to the audience, this is not a maudlin tone. This is fun. And that's exactly what Vic gave me and my husband Billy and his wife Tina all those years. It was really just a decade of just fun with a capital F. And, as hard as it is to live on the road, to live in your car and go to be unwashed and hungry and lonely and homesick, and sometimes fans can be awfully scary. There's a difference between listeners, and listeners are people who are there playing their role, and you play yours. A fan is kind of creepy. I wear big boots on tour. And it's a tough life, and yet it's so freeing to just be in a diner somewhere in middle America with worlds of snow outside and nothing in your, no reason to look at your watch, nothing in your future but more music. Mm. And you never know how long that story's going to end. In this case, how long it's going to go on. It can go on forever, but like I say, nothing does. Just another spiral begins.
Yeah. So, in the end, have those books been, for you personally, therapeutic experiences to write them?
That sounds so obnoxious, but for me to say that, as if it were catharsis to unburden myself in some way. I don't think either was, but I do think I learned a lot about these three-dimensional characters that are the people I've been lucky enough to have surrounded myself with. When you truly crawl into their skin and remember their voices and see their motivation, it's like, I suppose, what it feels like to be an actor, but I'm a shy person. I would never do that. The writer, Colin McCann, told me it's stepping into another man's shoes, and I guess that's what it is. It's the honor of honoring somebody else. I learned a lot from that, and so in that way, yes, it's very therapeutic, because it's always lovely to hear that you're not the story. Every time I look at one of my children, I have that unburdening of self. Like, yay, it's not about me.
Now, speaking of books, the last Throwing Muses album came with an accompanying book, which I think is a wonderful way to present a new CD. Are there any thoughts of perhaps going into the back catalogue of albums and reissuing them in a similar format?
Oh, my goodness. No. I don't think they're mine to reissue. I don't own them. Warner Brothers does. But I do own some of the solo records and all of the 50-Foot Wave records. That's not a bad idea. I'll put you on the payroll.
Oh, yeah, I'll gladly take credit.
My new solo record is being published as a book. I don't see any reason to stop doing it.
No.
It's such a complimentary medium. And honestly, if you hand someone a CD, it's a little bit like implying that they should adopt your religion. Here's my soundtrack, make it yours. Yeah. It seems a little underhanded, but if you give someone a book, they still see it as a gift. So
true.
It's extra underhanded if you ask me, but that's what I'm about, just trying to get somebody to adopt my soundtrack. That's as ambitious as I get.
Often saw Throwing Muses referred to or described as an alternative band. Did that label sit okay with you?
When they first called us that, it was before there were any other alternative bands, so we were offended. We were a little suspicious. Like I say, we were such losers, but we just kept asking, alternative to what? Real music? What do you mean? And then it wasn't for another 10 years that alternative rock became popular, and people dressed as crappy as we did, and then everybody thought we were cool, but we knew better. We were still losers. But I do like the idea of working in the corner of the industry, because that means you can continue. If you're never in, you're not necessarily going to be out. And so I've sold millions of records. It just took me 25 years to do it.
So when you began recording solo albums, was that very much a matter of having songs in front of you that didn't quite suit the band and needed a more personal outlet to present them?
Yeah, but that makes it sound good or premeditated. I actually had recorded those acoustic songs for my husband, and I wasn't really thinking about the fact that he was one of my managers at the time, and so somehow the records or the songs fell into the hands of Michael Stipe and Warner Brothers, and they were just going to release them, which is, that just seemed creepy to me. I like someone coming across your diary and publishing it behind your back, which I have now done. I published my diary, but that's what Ifs and Makers was, and I honestly thought Warner Brothers just felt sorry for me, and that's why they were saying they were going to release it. So I called people there and said, "You don't have to do this. I'm not like that, and they said, "Oh, we like it. We want to release it." I still didn't understand. And when they sent me the record, they let me choose the painter, Shinra Mataki, did the cover, and I thought that was just part of him just feeling sorry for me. They went, well, here you go, here's your record, honey. And they had written my name on the cover, and I called them laughing, saying, no, you don't write my name on anything. And they said, well, whose name did you want? And I realized, oh, there's no Throwing Muses to hide behind anymore. There's no friends. There's no noise. There's no alternate reality. There's just my stupid little face. And that's what I had to tour. I had to walk out on those stages and find a stool that they always put acoustic checks on. It's always really rickety. And you have to climb up and you have to grab the guitar. And if you fall, you bump into the microphone and it goes boom so everybody can hear it. You know, it's an easy way to make a fool of yourself, especially if you don't wear contacts when you play, like I don't, to make the audience really focus. It was a hell of a learning curve, and none of it was premeditated, but I did learn that there's no dollar to decibel equation, that a lot of people prefer the raw skeletal version of a song in order to hear its essence, whereas I had been painting these bright, loud colors, not wanting to impress them, but just out of enthusiasm for bright, loud colors. And some people prefer the pencil sketch, and so I've learned to work in both. And that's been an honor to have material that is suitable for a solo acoustic guitar, just wood and muscles, and then Throwing Muses, which is this sort of intricate, often clean guitars, but very complex, artful arrangements, and then 50-Foot Wave, which is essentially math rock, noise rock, and every song has been an honor. As frightened as I was of music, it sort of implies that there's a springboard. You need muscles to jump off. And if somebody's pushing you off, you might as well jump.
So when you have a batch of new songs in front of you, is there a particular point where it becomes apparent where they would be most suited to be, either with a solo recording or with Throwing Muses or with 50-Foot Wave?
I have a really stupid answer for that question. Solo songs are written on my Collings C10. 50-Foot Wave songs are written on my SG or my Les Paul, and Throwing Muses songs are written on my Teller or my Strat. I have no idea why, and my drummers tell me it's a flawed system. But it works for me. The only rule I have to follow. So the guitar seems to choose it. Yeah.
No, if that's what works for you, that's what works.
Well, it only works for me. It doesn't work for anybody else.
Hey, you've got an extremely loyal fan base for both your bands and your solo work. It must give you a great sense of comfort and encouragement knowing that they're there and they're open to any direction that you want to take your music.
It's unbelievable. And they're, like I say, a real listener is just a friend. That, a fan is someone who sees you as interchangeable with other musicians or even just Star Trek. I don't know. There's a distance between you and a fan, but a listener is right there, knowing you're human. They allow the music to resonate because of what they bring to it, so you can see instantly that their humanity is intact. And it's amazing. Throwing Muses we were just on tour for about a year for Purgatory Paradise, and the fans were sort of this onslaught. We're not big people, and we weren't usually drunk, but they're big and drunk and weepy, and they want hugs and they want pictures. It goes on until 3 in the morning, and we're really nice people, but eventually we just said we can't do it. There's something deeply exhausting about it when you're this shy. And so we would sneak out the back, and out the back would be the Strange Angel supporters, the people who pay for our studio costs so that we can be listener supported and don't need a record company. And those people we would make friends with, truly friends. And they'd walk us to our hotel, and it's that group of people that make us want to refine rather than expand our audience, so that every show becomes our kind of church. I mean, I know that sounds pretentious, but I just mean that we need to hold up the song's hover body together, and you can't really do that when people's energy is conflicting. And the real listeners, it's just an honor. It's so touching and so freeing to know that I don't have to be a hot chick writing dumb songs in order to keep making records.
Your songs can be very open and very personal. Do you sometimes look back on some of those songs and feel that maybe I've given out a little bit too much of myself?
Oh, sure. Yeah. As a rule. And yet, the good songs go beneath my personality to something that I have in common with the listener. And so I no longer am capable of shame or even self-awareness. It's more like a disappearing act, because you reach beneath, I guess, ego, really. And what I share with the listener, how can I be ashamed of that? It's more like a celebration of mess, and that can be very beautiful. It's never going to be pretty, but it's, ugly is beautiful down there when we have it in common.
Let's talk about the upcoming tour of Australia and the format of the shows. Are you playing solo?
Yes. And reading from books, and I guess I'm just making stuff up. But it's what I've been doing for a little while now, and it's sort of charming to be able to speak English to people that I've been speaking music to for so long. Not everyone is literate in that language, but you speak English to an English speaker and there's an instant reaction. And the essays will inform the songs, which will inform the next essay. And I learned from it because my process of writing both songs and it's almost like prose poetry, these song essays is almost like automatic writing. And so something that will often jump out at me that I didn't think I knew, or I didn't know. Hopefully the process is, again, beneath my ego or above it or something, so that Kristin can learn from what the songs know.
And are you playing material from just your solo work, or are you playing Throwing Muses and 50-Foot Wave material as well?
Yeah, I play everything, and I play some Vic Chestnut songs.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, maybe. Vic is wonderful. I don't know if my covers of him are wonderful. He's hard to cover. You think, well, who has the right? And if you sound too much like him, it sounds like you're making fun of him because he was such a goof. He's just so special and so idiosyncratic. And then if you make it your own, well, that doesn't seem right either. Like, it shouldn't be your own. It should be fixed. I'm not very brave when it comes to covering his songs, but I am moved. We used to play on stage together just for hours at a time, swapping songs back and forth. And so I play the songs that were my favorites from those shows. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier there's a new record just completed. What can you tell us about that?
I just finished it yesterday. 4 years of work. I finished the record and the book at exactly the same time. It was very strange. I was in the studio, and my drummer, who does the graphic design work, and he sent the very last tweaks for me to check and send back, and I altered the last paragraph as I was tweaking the very last notes of the record. It was
wow.
I know. This is very strange. But it's 24 songs long, so it's 2 CDs and a book. It's called Wyatt at the Coyote Palace. because my son Wyatt, when we lived up the street from the studio in a farmhouse, would explore this abandoned apartment building behind the studio where the people had gone, but coyotes had moved in and they were sleeping on the beds and living with the teapots and the silverware and the lamps. It was a very strange place. And Wyatt was, he would be flushed with excitement about the Coyote Palace, this dark, kind of scary building. At one point the roof caved in and we weren't in there at the time, but, you know, that's how good a mother I am. But it was very important to him that he climb up into the Coyote Palace every day. And then one day it was all over. He refused to go back. He said, "No more Coyote Palace." And I was heartbroken because for me that was it was sort of a goal. Wyatt's my hero, and I wanted to be that way about the work I was doing. He'd go to the Coyote Palace, I'd go to the studio. He'd come back flushed with excitement, and I always wanted to be the same. And then when he said no more, I thought, what does that mean? And my drummer from Throwing Muses said he needed to encapsulate the sensory experience, and you'll see it in his work because it's finite. So that helps me yesterday walk away from this work that has been my love and my therapy and my obsession for the last 4 years and say, it's finite. And that's how I can maintain my enthusiasm, my flesh. You have to walk away or you don't stay in love. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of enthusiasm down here for your upcoming tour. We can't wait to see you.
I can't wait to be there. It's my home away from home, and I don't have a home, so I'm just going to call it home.
Yeah, no, you're always welcome here. Can't wait to see you. Kristin, thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure catching up with you, and we eagerly await the tour and the new record.
Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. Take care.
And you, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Great. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye. Bye.